In today's biased news, Syria is welcomed back into the Arab League, suspected white supremacist murders 8 in Texas, and ethnic conflict is brewing in India. Foreign ministers from Arab League member states have agreed to reinstate Syria's membership after its suspension more than 10 years ago, with the vote passing at the League's headquarters in Cairo on Sunday. The vote followed renewed commitment to, quote, preserving Syria's sovereignty, territorial unity, stability, and regional integrity based on the Arab League's charter and its principles. The decision follows a wave of regional normalization of ties with Damascus in recent weeks. Syria's Arab League membership was revoked after the beginning of tensions in the country back in 2011, which has led to an incredibly disruptive civil war with global consequences. The process of restoring ties ramped up after the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, and the China-brokered re-establishment of ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which had backed opposing sides in the Syrian conflict. Opposition groups have criticized this normalization, with the League responding, quote, we respect all opinions on this issue. We understand what the opposition has been saying, and we do appreciate that they are in a difficult position. The Syrian crisis has been spilling over very negative effects on neighboring countries. The neighboring countries and the region, especially the Arab countries, feel that this situation needs to be resolved. This is why we reached this point. End quote. Saudi Arabia, which long resisted normalizing relations with al-Assad, has changed course as the Saudi foreign minister visited Damascus last month for the first time in over a decade, the two countries also restoring embassies and flights between them. Iran's President Raisi was also in Damascus last week, signing long-term trade and oil agreements. Jordan, Kuwait, and Qatar still oppose Syria's presence at the Arab League summit, thinking that without a peace plan with the opposition, the invitation is premature. Meanwhile, the United States said it will not change its policy towards the Syrian government, deeming it a rogue state and maintaining sanctions and general limitations on Syrian nationals. In Chile, a far-right party came out on top in an election on Sunday. The Republican Party secured 35% of the vote. Unity for Chile, a coalition of left-wing parties supported by President Gabriel Boric, finished with 29%. The Republicans believe that Chile's constitution, which was brought into effect under fascist dictator Augusto Pinochet, does not need to be changed. This Saturday, the US saw its second deadliest mass shooting of the year at a mall in Allen, Texas, about 25 miles north of Dallas, leaving 8 people dead. Investigators are currently probing whether the killer was driven by right-wing extremism. Authorities have not yet announced a motive for why the gunman, 33-year-old Mauricio Garcia, went on his killing spree. His online presence, ad posts, and the insignia he wore all imply strong far-right political beliefs. Ethnic violence in the Indian state of Manipur has killed more than 50 people, left hundreds hospitalized, and displaced 23,000, according to hospital officials and the Indian Army. According to a statement by hospital officials, at least 55 people have been killed and a further 260 hospitalized since violence broke out between members of 2 ethnic groups earlier this week. Meanwhile, the Indian Army says that 23,000 civilians have fled the fighting, with the displaced being housed on military bases and garrisons. President Joe Biden and top congressional Democrats and Republicans are scheduled to sit down this week to try to resolve a 3-month standoff over the $31.4 trillion US debt ceiling and avoid a crippling default before the end of May. The Democratic president is calling on lawmakers to raise the federal government's self-imposed borrowing limit without conditions. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said his chamber will not approve any deal that does not cut spending to address a growing budget deficit. Analysts do not expect an immediate deal and the averting of a historic default, which the Treasury Department has warned could come as soon as June 1st. Forecasters warn a default would likely send the US economy into deep recession with soaring unemployment, continuing the trend of declining quality of life for the American people. In positive news of the day, Bolivian General Gary Prado Salmón, who captured, tortured, and executed communist revolutionary icon Che Guevara in 1967, died on Saturday, aged 84, as revealed by his son on social media. Prado was in charge of a patrol in southwestern Bolivia on October 8, 1967 that captured the Argentinian revolutionary. A day later, the Bolivian military executed Guevara, who had made his name alongside Fidel Castro during the Cuban Revolution. Unlike reactionaries and cowards such as Prado, the legacy of Guevara and other revolutionaries like him will live on, and continue to inspire millions around the world to fight for a better life for all of us. That's all for today. We'll be back day after tomorrow with more news. If you missed them, be sure to check out our previous episodes by following the links on your screen. As always, you can support the show and get the news in text form a few hours early by becoming a patron at patreon.com/firstthought.